There are two similar alternatives to the OLS estimation of linear regression. The ordinary least squares, where you minimize the sum of squares of the difference between actual and predicted values of the dependent variable y. And those alternators are Ridge and Lasso. And why do we need them? We need them because sometimes when you keep on adding a lot of features to your regression model, your model is prone to overfit, because if you have read something about r square, it keeps on increasing if you add features. And yes, you can use adjusted r square to help your cause, but let's say you have 100 features, so definitely you would want to have only those features which make sense to your data and the predictive power of your built model. So that is why we need Ridge and Lasso. In both Ridge and Lasso, we add a penalty term to our cost function. The cost function which we just discussed some time back. The sum of the squares of the difference between actual versus predicted. When we add that penalty term to this value, that penalty is on our features. So in Ridge, what we do is we take sum of the squares of the features, the coefficients essentially. So sum of the squares of the coefficients, and then we multiply with a hyperparameter called lambda. So that gives you the extra term with the cost function, the penalty term of the cost function. So if you observe this penalty term, it has sum of the squares of the coefficients, which mean I'm trying to restrict the magnitude of coefficients. So it's a kind of penalty on the size of the coefficient. And when you move towards Lasso, we replace that with a mod function, or rather the absolute value of the coefficient. So in Lasso, what we have is the lambda hyperparameter times the sum of the absolute values of the coefficients. Now the difference between them is both of them want to shrink your coefficient. But in Ridge, as there's a square term, they gradually move towards 0. And in your Lasso, because of that mod symbol, that absolute value of coefficient, what we get is an exact 0 for a lot of features. So your Lasso sometimes does the work of feature selection. So this is the difference between Ridge and Lasso, and both Ridge and Lasso are like an alternative to your ordinary least square estimation of linear regression, and this is done to penalize the features which don't add much value. We call these two methods as regularization methods. Let's talk about why Lasso makes few coefficients to be exactly 0 in a different video.